It is undeniable that the world is full of wonders. But sometimes one forgets that those wonders dwell not only on the surface, but are often well hidden. They may sit in the deepest recesses of nature, unseen for eons. Or they might sit in plain sight, observing but unobserved. This was a lesson that the Hunters Guild learned through a curious encounter during its third generation of research. At that time, the Guild had begun expanding their efforts to chart and map remote areas that their previous efforts had left untouched. From island paradises to desert plains, many unique and fascinating ecosystems were officially discovered in this research push. One such region was a tropical wetland called the Flooded Forest, an area with dense vegetation and a dark, swelling river. This hunting ground experiences minimal temperature differences across the day and the year, making it the perfect habitat for a variety of unique plants and fungi. Numerous large trees sprout up from the river itself, giving the Flooded Forest its name. Despite the forest's beauty and density, it was initially classified as an area of low interest by the Guild. While it was indeed a fascinating place, it did not seem to contain many monster species worth studying or resources worth gathering. But one discovery changed this attitude. During some routine reconnaissance, Guild envoys noted that the riverbed glistened with various rare ore deposits, and that similar mineral and metal sources could be found all over the area. This caused the Guild to reassess the Flooded Forest and increase activity in the region. Ore discoveries have not slowed down to this day, and it has even been proposed that the Flooded Forest was one massive ore vein in ancient times. Researching the Flooded Forest came with some hurdles, however. The river that runs through this region experiences significant fluctuations in its volume, causing it to swell and shrink periodically. This has profound effects on the traversability of the region. When the river is at its most voluminous, anyone working in the area must be ready to swim and dive to get anywhere. Today, the duties of researching and hunting in this region are split between jurisdictions based on the state of the river. When the water levels are low and the river is calm, the Flooded Forest is usually patrolled by hunters from the Kamura village branch of the Hunters Guild. But when the forest floods fully and the river roils violently, then the region becomes the territory of the Loklak and Moga village branches, whose hunters are known to be excellent swimmers and divers. It was in this flooded state that the Guild originally found the Flooded Forest, leading to the dispatch of hunters trained in underwater combat. But that was not the end of their troubles. Just how the river had initially concealed the existence of its valuable ores, so too did it hide less cooperative secrets. Before long, the Guild received reports by terrified scholars, describing incidents in which a dark shadow leapt up from the riverbed before a flash of light burned their retinas. These reports eventually escalated to also including casualties and missing persons reports. An investigation was organized, and, after painstakingly combing through the dense wetland, the culprit was identified. It was a bizarre, plump leviathan that the Guild officially named Gobul. As a fairly new classification at the time, leviathans were still quite mysterious, and their shared traits still up for debate. That being said, the Gobul's discovery sent shockwaves through the scholarly halls of guild towns, as its body was unlike that of previously discovered leviathans. Instead of the long and slender builds seen in species like Lagiacrus and Ludroth, the body of a gobul is flat and wide, with short, stubby legs that are held directly under the torso, as opposed to sprawling out to the side. Additionally, gobul have extremely short necks, again contrasting starkly to other leviathans. Closer inspection revealed that the gobul essentially consists of two body layers: a plump underside with a large sheet-like overside on top, forming a large disc-like structure on its back. The width of the body tapers out at the back, eventually concluding in a thin and flexible tail. Like in any case where a new discovery makes no sense initially, scholars of the guild rushed to study the gobul and fit it into the scientific framework the guild maintains. This was, however, quite a challenge due to two factors. Gobul are dangerous, as some unfortunate souls found out the hard way while wading through the flooded forest. But more importantly, this species is extremely hard to actually observe. Gobul spend much of their time not just submerged in water, but buried in the riverbed itself, blending into the environment seamlessly. This is their primary hunting method, as they will lunge out as soon as suitable prey comes close enough. This makes them powerful predators, and extremely difficult to study. But, as always, through diligent effort and ingenuity, knowledge about the gobul's life and biology began to accumulate. At 18 meters long, the gobul is not exactly an easy creature to miss. So one of the first topics of research was how it was able to hide so efficiently. By burrowing into the soil at the bottom of the river, it can partially cover its body in sand, which is a start. But the effect only truly works thanks to the gobul's skin. While it usually appears purple, the skin is saturated with specialized cells called chromatophores, which can be stimulated chemically to change the color of the skin. As it gets ready to hide, a gobul senses the amount and type of light reflected by the water around and under it, using that input to finely tune its chromatophores and change to the most appropriate color. This, in combination with burrowing into the soil, completes its sophisticated camouflage. But hunting requires more than that. After all, this strategy does make the gobul nearly invisible, but it also severely limits its movements. So if it cannot approach prey itself, it must find a way to lure prey towards it. To that end, the gobul has developed two physiological features. For one, this leviathan grows peculiar whiskers on its chin, which are often exposed while it lies in hiding. These whiskers are shaped and colored such that they mimic a common species of underwater plant that is found in this region. By letting these whiskers stay out and visible, the gobul attracts prey closer to it, as many of the species it preys on are either interested in or ambivalent towards these plants. The second luring method is even more outrageous. On its head, the gobul grows a long antenna that is tipped with a large, round bulb. This is called the gobul's lantern, and can also be left exposed during the hunting phase. The bulb at the tip of the lantern is filled with colonies of symbiotic bacteria, which wait until they receive their bespoke signal. At will, the gobul can use specialized glands in the lantern to secrete a nutritious fluid that stimulates the bacteria, which in turn begin to produce bioluminescence. This allows the leviathan to produce light at will, which can be used to intrigue and lure in certain species of fish. This ability has to be used sparingly, however. The emitted light can also attract unwanted rivals to the Gobul's location, after all. Using the whiskers and the lantern, the Gobul lures in prey and, once it gets within range, lunges out at it with its massive maw wide open. One bite is usually all it takes. The long needle teeth of the Leviathan are not used for chewing, but instead for ripping prey apart in that single bite, and for clamping down on larger targets that attempt to escape. Should the initial assault fail, the Gobul still has options. By flooding its lamp with the bacterial stimulant, it can produce a sudden and violent flash of light that can stun prey and leave it defenseless. Alternatively, the Gobul can also open its mouth wide and suck in the surrounding water in an attempt to simply swallow its prey whole. While the suction force of this maneuver might not work on its heaviest victims, it can reliably secure meals regardless. The voraciousness of a Gobul is notorious, and they are known to swallow all sorts of junk while hunting. With such an indiscriminate feeding mechanism, it is no surprise that the Gobul preys on just about anything that wades into the waters of the flooded forest. Curiously, they appear to have a strong preference for the taste of frogs. But while it does have a wide variety of potential prey species, the Gobul is far from uncontested. Many large leviathans, such as the royal ludroth or Lagiacrus, sometimes cross into the flooded forest and may encounter a Gobul. Situations like these are not at all in the Gobul's favor, as it is a pretty bad swimmer and cannot outmaneuver more agile leviathans. In such cases, or if otherwise threatened, the Gobul does have access to a few weapons. The lantern flash that stuns prey can also be used to disorient enemies before making an escape. Additionally, the Gobul can suck in water to inflate its body, making it appear much larger. Should that not be enough, inflating further still reveals the Leviathan's deadliest weapon. Numerous deadly spikes and needles that usually sit buried in the skin but emerge when the body is inflated. They line the entire upper side of the torso and also pepper the tip of the tail. These spikes administer a powerful neurotoxin that paralyzes victims rapidly. While it is rarely used on prey, its primary function appears to be as a defense mechanism. Interestingly, this neurotoxin is not actually produced inside the Leviathan's body. Instead, the Gobul acquires it through a process called bioaccumulation. In the varied and colorful ecosystem of the flooded forest, many different species of insects, amphibians, and even plants use small amounts of venom to survive. These creatures are often devoured by larger organisms, which themselves are eventually preyed upon by the Gobul, which feeds on the entire small to mid-sized population of the forest. As a result, all these different types of venom end up in its gullet, where they mix and concentrate. Gobul appear to have adapted to this, and have a high resistance to the resulting substance, which allows them to store it in their body and use it as a neurotoxin in their deadly spikes. Besides its lantern and its toxins, the Gobul can also defend itself using its raw physicality. While it is not an agile or graceful swimmer, it can propel itself rapidly through the water if given a fulcrum to push itself off of. Its fin-like arms are deceptively strong and resistant, allowing the Leviathan to charge quite violently when the conditions are right. It has been noted that a charging Gobul has enough force to crack a small ship in half. In rare instances, Gobul can also venture onto land to escape, but that is only done in the most dire cases. On land, Gobul are slow and clumsy, and while they can inflate themselves by sucking in air instead of water, they simply are not as capable when outside of their element. Despite the immense danger associated with it, researchers continue to study the Gobul, gathering all kinds of data whenever possible. The murky depths are deadly enough by themselves to humans, and the presence of a massive leviathan that might lunge out with a giant maw of dagger teeth only magnifies the risk. But the guild is not known for leaving stones unturned, and so research on Gobul has progressed over time. For example, the habitat range of the species was able to be defined, with Gobul appearing most commonly in the flooded forest, but also being spotted in the open ocean and on the coasts near Moga Island. One notable topic of research and discussion that has so far not been resolved, however, is the matter of the Gobul's life cycle. In a landmark study, the body of a Gobul that had been slain in the flooded forest was compared to that of an individual that had been found out in the open sea. This revealed a stark discrepancy. The Gobul found in the forest lacked any kind of reproductive organs, to the degree that it was not even possible to determine its sex. By comparison, the ocean Gobul displayed visible and fully developed ovaries. Both specimens were determined to be of adult age, which made this difference even more bizarre. One hypothesis that formed from this case was that Gobul might be generally endemic to the flooded forest, but that they must breed and reproduce out on the open ocean. So, when the breeding season comes, Gobul develop sexual organs and migrate to the sea to usher in the new generation. Verifying this hypothesis is difficult, especially because no juvenile Gobul have ever been identified. This has been interpreted as an indication that juveniles of the species either spend their youth hiding in the deep sea, or that they look so different from adults that researchers have been unable to link them to the species. Another curious angle to this investigation is that of the species' neurotoxin. Since it is the result of bioaccumulation, Gobul can only gain this toxin by living in the flooded forest. So it has been proposed that perhaps juvenile Gobul must seek out the forest once they are large enough and live there for some time to accumulate the neurotoxin that they use to defend themselves as adults. This is, however, pure speculation at this point. While the juveniles remain a mystery, the aging of Gobul has been observed more extensively. While some parts of the body, such as the fins, never really change, other features are affected by the passage of time. The spikes of elderly Gobul are longer and thicker, and thus able to inject greater amounts of neurotoxin in a single prick. The whiskers of a Gobul also change with age, eventually becoming so intricate and filamentous that they no longer resemble the plants they aim to mimic. This has been theorized to be what ends up killing elderly individuals, as they become unable to hunt as effectively and eventually just starve to death. That is, however, still highly debated. Besides the raw scientific interest in the creature, the guild has also perceived a noted economic appeal in this leviathan. Nearly every part of the Gobul is edible with the right preparation, making it a bountiful source of food if slain. The skin is considered especially delicious, although it is also known to be a bit of an acquired taste. This is only true for the skins of younger individuals, however. Elderly Gobul skin is tough and rubbery, which makes it excellent for armor crafting, but unenjoyable to eat. The versatility of Gobul skin goes even further. In order to stay hydrated whenever the Leviathan goes on land, the Gobul skin excretes a moisturizing mucus which can, incidentally, be used by humans as a cosmetic ointment. For some time, Gobul was considered the outlier species of Leviathans. Clearly related to them, but profoundly different in its physiology and ecological niche. As research on the species progressed, the Guild received reports of a similar creature emerging in a vastly different environment. This intel came not from a lush submerged woodland, but instead from the sandy plains, a recently discovered desert hunting ground. Here, guardsmen warned of a dune that moved ever so slightly, which had begun swallowing cargo whenever it came near. Outlandish observations such as these are often the impetus for new discoveries, and sure enough, a team of researchers was able to identify this as not just a monster, but as a Leviathan closely related to the Gobul. This odd creature was promptly added to the Guild's records under the name Nibelsnarf. Just like the Gobul, Nibelsnarf is an extremely unusual Leviathan. It too is wide and flat, with a short neck and round torso hidden under a massive disc structure that tapers out into a thin, flexible tail. However, the Nibelsnarf is not an aquatic creature, and is instead adapted to diving into and swimming through sand, similar to monsters such as the Cephadrome. As such, its body does display many significant differences to that of the Gobul. For example, the upper disc of the Nibelsnarf's body is not made up of hide and skin like in the Gobul, but instead consists of a hard brown shell. At the central arch of the back, a large ridge roughly resembles the shape of a sand dune. This structure is central to the Nibelsnarf's own camouflage, as it can burrow into the sand and have its back ridge create a fairly convincing dune mound that hides its presence. When submerged, it generally uses sound to detect any nearby prey. It can, however, also use its underdeveloped eyes to some extent, which are located on the top of its head and perpetually gaze upwards. They are mostly used to quickly peek outside the sand and estimate the distance between its hiding spot and a passing prey. When a victim comes close to the Nibelsnarf's trap, it, like the Gobul, lunges out and attempts to swallow it whole. It is in these moments that one gets a good look at this remarkable creature and its odd body. The Nibelsnarf's head is massive, making up a significant portion of the Leviathan's body mass. That is because that head features a truly gigantic mouth, larger than even the Gobul's. With it, the Nibelsnarf can easily swallow even large prey in a single bite, maximizing the success of its predation strategy. Observing the mouth and the head also reveals much about how this species has adapted to the desert. With its maw agape, one can easily notice the Leviathan's well-developed and prominent uvula. This sensitive flesh bulb is connected to a valve system that can seal the throat in order to prevent sand from entering the esophagus. Additionally, the bottom palate of the Nibelsnarf is highly porous, forming a complex filter system that removes sand from the mouth and pushes it into dedicated passageways in the sides of the head. Through this passage, the sand is sent to the back of the head, where an external set of extendable red gills begins sifting through it before spraying the sand out to the back and sides of the Leviathan. This mechanism ensures that sand never enters the digestive tract and, as a bonus, gives the gills the opportunity to absorb small nutrient particles from the sand for additional benefit. It is believed that the head of the Nibelsnarf holds even more currently unknown organs like this, possibly further explaining its extreme size. The rest of the body is just as well adapted as the head. Nibelsnarf are known to produce a colorful body fluid that allows them to retain water more effectively, an invaluable trait to have when living under the harsh desert sun. This enhances its stamina and makes the Nibelsnarf quite formidable, even if its initial ambush fails to secure the kill. Unlike the Gobul, Nibelsnarf can actually walk and run quite effectively when on solid ground, an ability it uses to rush at enemies with its maw wide open. It is a voracious beast that will attempt to swallow anything in its path, even specially rigged explosives, as some monster hunters have discovered over the years. While the Gobul could use suction force to ensnare prey, the Nibelsnarf can do the opposite. By emptying its air and sand reserves all at once through its mouth, the Leviathan can emit a massive wind tunnel that can incapacitate targets through sheer force. The Nibelsnarf also boasts powerful defenses against counterattacks. The shell disc on its back sports countless horn-like growths that redistribute the force of any impact, and thus make the creature overall more resistant to blunt force and slashing assaults. And even if an enemy were to overcome the upper shell and manage to somehow reveal the Leviathan's more vulnerable underbelly, the Nibelsnarf has one more trick up its sleeve. The underside of the Nibelsnarf is covered in a supple, elastic hide that displays an extremely bright and varied coloration, including saturated blues and reds. While it still is not entirely clear why it looks like that, a common theory suggests that this is meant to trick enemies into hesitating when they see the Nibelsnarf's weak spot. In nature, vivid colors are often used and interpreted as a warning sign for poison. And while the Nibelsnarf is neither poisonous nor venomous, making an adversary unsure about that for even a second could grant the beast a precious opportunity to flip itself back over and escape. This is, however, not a settled debate as of now. What is known, however, is that this colorful hide is also somewhat resistant and can withstand some degree of damage. It has also been noted that the hides of older Nibelsnarf are tougher, honed through constant exposure to the sands. Aside from what can be gleaned from the encounters merchants and hunters have had with it, not much is known about the Nibelsnarf. Ironically though, the life cycle of juvenile Nibelsnarf has been observed, as opposed to that of the Gobul. Nibelsnarf are born into water and spent their youth as aquatic monsters. As they grow, they gradually become acclimated to sand as their bodies begin developing the adaptations that are commonly seen in adults. Upon reaching adulthood, Nibelsnarf leave the waters behind and begin their life under the sun-baked dunes. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and thank you for your feedback on the last episode. As I said last time, I've been kind of unhappy with how these episodes have felt lately in terms of scope and tone, so I've been trying to sort of figure that out, and it was really helpful when last time you guys told me that I had kind of missed the mark. So I hope this time I was able to bring in more of the creative, narrative stuff that I personally enjoy a lot and that apparently you guys also really like. So thanks so much. I'm really happy that we guys can have this sort of dialogue in creating this fun stuff. As always, also, I would like to really thank all the patrons and YouTube channel members that support the channel, and I would like to especially thank Thomas Caldicott, Autumns, Anjanath Tamer's Ambience, Matt, Wandering Soul, Stormbreaker Kai, Joshua Ellison, Uthduna is an Octopus, Chocolate Coat, Hunter Spaniol, Precum King, Joey Tribby 58, Makamawi, Yuriv, CJ, Carl the Crab, Alex Kamen, Christopher Bronson, Harpier, Suddenly, Molly Mockery, Rose, Zyperius Folkvar, Hamburger Discord, Zaffy, Theopuz, Lufish, Morgulblank, Tactywolf, Thyla Zero, Jacob Coleman, Hellbug Hunter, Shebo, M1have12, Regal Eagle, Ronger 97, Quali, Mad Hat 124, My Name Gone, The Dollar Fish, Sheba, Ryan Hook, Veraxis, Thick, Kuroneko, Zion H.V. Augensen, Alistair in Wonderland, Jacob the Numbnut, Soruka, Sir Newt Newt, Evie, Rambling Robin, Hashi, Black Ace 202, Dissy, Habo Himbro Mirror, Magenta Magenta, Danilo Villavicencio, Russell, Vulgar Beast, Person 212, Claire Miboon, Oakwood Tree, Mr. Pyramid, Makot 02, Nils Schlatter, Iron Camel, and nah, I'm going to bed. Take care, everyone. I'm gonna go sleep because I am sick as hell. Goodbye. See you next time.